Make sure we all understand the facts, okay? This is critical because I'm going to say this ahead of time. I tried my best, right? I have an approach. It's reasonable, but there's a certain point where this is like there's a wall here, right? And I don't think there's any way to get past it. All right, you'll see.
It hangs in the balance.
So Tosos. Okay, so again, the Mishnah says there's three zones, right? I'm not going to repeat this.
I already know this.
Okay, so there's three zones, and then there's Har, Shvel, and Emek. Okay? So Tosos says, how do you read the Mishnah? Tanakama says that the Galil has Har, Shvel, and Emek, Yehuda has Har, Shvel, and Emek, and Eri Yarden has Har, Shvel, and Emek. So what's the barometer we're dealing with? What's the issue?
Topography.
Well, before you get to that, I'm saying like
animals migrating.
Thank you. Migration patterns of animals, meaning that animals don't go from Galil to Yehuda, and animals don't go from Har to Shvela. Okay. So let's start Tosos first. Okay. Tanakama holds, according to Tosos, the Galil is one zone, Yarden's another zone, Yehuda's another zone.
Yeah.
And there's another way to divide things up, which is based on Har, Shvela, and Emek. So now, if I'm in the well, yeah. Now plug this into each one of these zones. So if I'm in the Galil, so Har animals, right, in the Galil, right, stick to the Har and won't go into the Shvela of the Galil.
Right.
Okay? But what do we go by though?
We go by Harmel?
Yeah.
Or
No, not Har. In the Galil. Let's say you're in the Galil. You're in the Galil. Okay? No, you're in the Galil. In the Galil itself. Okay? Okay. So if you're in the Galil, okay, if I have an
local topography, I guess.
Well, okay, fine. So the right word, okay? So you would say in the topography of the Galil, the last one that's Kalu, that's what you go by.
Right.
Is that clear?
It's the last mountain fruit if you're in the mountains.
Correct. Exactly.
And what are the Galil?
You go
the
by
Galil has.
You go by the line.
Seconds. The Galil has the potential to be divided up into three.
No, the Galil has three topographical areas.
Variables, right?
And in fact, all the zones have three topographical.
Variables.
Right. So
now, well, do they or do they have the potential to be?
No, they all do. They all do. Okay, so that's how they divide up. So it's equal divisions. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas what does Rosh Shimon hold?
Psych.
It's only Yehuda, right? There's no Galil and there's no Yarden.
Topography.
And there is topography in Yehuda.
He doesn't care.
In Yehuda.
Wait, does he care?
Yeah.
Wait, I
Well, no, it's not topography. It's just hard.
Is this the bigger thing?
This is what do you mean? Yes.
Yeah, Yehuda's.
Yes. We're gonna read that in a second. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right. Does everyone understand that?
Wait. Tanakama was each one goes by their own place, right?
Right. So.
But we look at Yehuda because it's bigger, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So each Yehuda, Yarden, and the other one goes by their landscape in their place.
Right. Each one has Har, Shvel, and Emek. Right. So the Galil Har, when that's Kalu, that's when you can't have those. Right. And again, it's all based on the migration pattern. So the same way animals won't migrate from Galil to Yarden, they won't migrate from Har to Shvela. So it just applies those two concepts and joins them together. Right. Which intuitively is not so crazy to understand. What word did you use before?
Topography.
Okay, so how would you describe Galil, Yarden, and Yehuda? They're what?
Topographically different?
No, no. We know they have different topography, but the different. I'll tell you. Then you'll be like, oh, these are geographical areas,
yeah.
right? So this is This is basically the major step in the idea. But Tanakama is saying what? Tanakama is saying that there's two categories that the Torah uses to determine color. Okay, one is geography, one is topography.
Right.
There's just two. When it comes to animals migrating, there's two factors or two categories we take into account. There's geography and topography. Those are the two categories. Simple. This is the only one that's easy to understand. Okay, just this. Is that clear though?
Yeah.
As a concept, conceptually, right? There's two categories. Okay, what do you do with this with Shimon?
He chetsis the geography.
What does that imply about the migration?
What do you mean?
Right, that doesn't exist as an animal.
If you look at the Aruch HaShulchan Asid, okay, take a look at let's see, in Yud Zion, okay, in Yud Zion, you have to go down to, let's see, I just wanted to get you that one line because I didn't make this up. He says, he says the Hachi Pirusha. Okay, look, see where it says where my finger is. Vav He Pei, the Hachi Pirusha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're asking a question? How could you ask? It's in the middle of. It's a good point. It's in Shmita Yovel Siman Chav Zayin Halacha Yud Zayin. So he says, V'hachi Pirusha, Dinei Rosh Shimon Cholek b'Mishnah, V'omer Dilo Amru Shalosh Aratzos Ela B'Yehuda. Okay? V'kasha, Eza Sfar Yesh Bazeh. Right? Dibi Yehuda Yischalek L'Shosha Chalakim. Right? V'galil V'Evar Yardin Kol Shnei Medinos Ka'achas. So where do you make this? How do you get this? The Aruch was bothered. Where the heck did he get this idea from that Yehuda is its own territory? Right? How can he make that up? Well, he made that up? It's impossible. So he says,
He did.
Ulazem etaretz demibnei she'ein chaya shebahar gedela al shebe'emek. Okay, so we know that an animal a wild animal that lives in a mountain won't wander into the valley. Okay, Ubi Yehuda hayu harim. I don't know, but you got that's okay. Again, in order to do this, you just gotta. I please, you should know me well enough to know that it kills me for saying this, but you got to suspend those types of questions. Take it for what I wouldn't say disbelief, but you have to take him at his word. But this is what he's saying, though. What are we supposed to do? Right? And then he says, Ubi Yehuda hayu harim gedolim, thou make him gedolim, which fails gedolos. And in Yehuda, very large plains.
So they happen to be longer.
Right. Okay. So now let's make the methodological maneuver. If Tanakama is assuming, based on Tosfos' way of learning, that topography and geography are the two categories, can Rosh Shimon disagree with that? Essentially, remember, every machlokas it's more than that. Every machlokas has to have a point of contention. There's a point they agree on. So I'm going to posit that they both agree topography and geography go into determining these zones. Tanakama is holding that topography and geography are two separate categories. So what's he saying?
He's saying only when that matters.
I'll make the question as simple as possible. Why would Rosh Shimon not have a Galil and Yarden zone? And only Yehuda.
He says it's
based on what the Aruch HaShulchan says. He says, since in the Yehuda zone, the Harim and Shvelos and Amex are greater.
Large zone.
What? Say it again?
I'm just going
to say what you said in just one little sentence. As far as the beautiful Svara, what's Rosh Shimon saying? Rosh Shimon saying that in order for a geographical zone to emerge, what must exist?
Topographic variation.
Exactly, a distinct topographical variation. But that's what the Aruch HaShulchan is saying. So distinct that nothing else has it. That's what Rosh Shimon is saying. So this is now just look what I've done. The machlokas now is much. You see why it's a point of contention? You see why you work out the way? I told you. See, you can work out of it. So hold on. Let me just repeat it again, then I'll answer your question. So the machlokas is as follows. Both of them agree that when it comes to determining kalu and taking into account these migration patterns of animals, there's two categories that exist. There's topography and geography. Tanakama holds they're two separate categories, and they plug that into the zones. The zones are created based on these two distinct categories. But Rosh Shimon says no. Rosh Shimon says in order to create a geographical zone, in order to create such a geographical phenomenon, you need a distinct topography. The Aruch HaShulchan is telling us that because the topography of Yehuda is so distinct, that's what allows a geographical zone to emerge. But Yarden and Galil are lacking, again, I don't understand factually how but they're lacking that topographical distinction. So therefore you can't create a geographical zone. So therefore, Kono Shimon, there will be no such thing as a zone by Galil and Yarden, only by Yehuda. But what does Rashi say? Rashi says basically, the starting point is it seems like there are 9 equal zones, right? But he qualifies that. He says no. There's Galil, before we get that, there's Galil, Yarden, and Yehuda, right? Those are the 3 primary zones. And then, within each zone, you have subzones. Okay? You have Galil A, B, and C. Of course, what's the problem with that? When do you, so if I'm in the Galil and Yehuda, it's Man Bir and Yehuda for oranges, and I have my Galil oranges, can I still eat my Galil oranges? Yes. Right, yes. But in Galil itself, right, if I'm in zone A, right, and in zone C, what do you call it? Is kalu? It goes by the last subzone kalu.
Or the first.
Right? No, the last.
If any of them.
No, because in zone A is kalu, but zone C is still good. I can still eat my things.
You can't.
I can.
Whoa, what?
Okay, you're getting confused with eight.
Hold on.
You explain to him.
I thought the question of Rashi was.
Rosh Shimon says there's only same thing.
The last to go.
Yeah, in Yehuda. Rosh Shimon says the same thing as he said over here. He says Yehuda is broken up into zones. Right? Forget. I shouldn't have written this actually. Yehuda is broken up into 3 zones. Right? 3 subzones. Okay. but he doesn't have the other two zones. So what the heck's a machlokas? How do you define this? How do you define this? The question.
Your methodology.
I'll tell you, when I say it, you'll understand it. Okay.
Negative versus non-negative.
The question is, to me, what I would want to start with is where do Tanakam and Rav Shimon agree? That's what I would start with. What Dylan's hinting at, I hope this is what you're hinting at. I think what he's saying is that I want to say it right now. That's not the point step I made. That's a different step, right? That's actually, again, this morning that was the first step we made, but then I went back and said the better step is the step you'll see. What comes first? Okay, if you look at Eretz Yisrael, all right, Tanakam is saying what? Tanakam is saying that if I looked at the migrating patterns of animals, how many zones would I have?
9 in total.
9. I'd have 9 zones total, right?
Yeah.
Right? There would be no primary versus secondary. I would have 9 equal zones. Yeah, because why?
3 moves.
Not true, because even the
There
Galil.
are 9 zones, but those
Right.
3 moves.
No.
3 patterns.
No.
It goes from hard to Amek.
No. I drew out Eretz Yisrael according to Tanakama. Before halacha comes along, I know it sounds strange to say that, but before halacha, how would you look at Israel? You'd say Israel is broken up into
3. Come on. That's exact.
9 zones. Why? Because all we're worried about is migrating patterns, right?
No. It's not one pattern. Relax. What are you doing? Whoa.
No, that's the whole point. In other words, I'm looking for how animals migrate. Again, in order for color, right? Because they're going to only eat in their area. So this animal will not go to here. And this animal will not go to here. And this animal will not go to here. And this animal will not go to here. They'll all stay in their zones.
So only 3. There are only 3 loops.
And that's also a good starting point, by the way. I'm not saying my starting point was better, but that's a good starting point too. Ezra's saying like this. If you look at Eretz Yisrael initially, how is Eretz Yisrael divided up? To 9 equal zones, because we're looking at migrating patterns, right? But what does the Torah tell you? Shalosh and Shalosh. And Rashi learns Shalosh to mean what?
9 zones.
No. What is Shalosh? 3 primary?
And 3 secondary.
Right, and each one has secondary sub. Right. So what is that? So how can they make that distinction? I mean, I'm not giving this far away yet, but clearly, let's just take the next step. If they're going to have primary zones, right? So what they're saying is that we're no longer considering 9 equal zones of lack of movement. We're getting rid of that.
What was that? What do we mean movement?
They were obviously rejecting. They're rejecting the notion of equal. They can't be in denial about the fact about these lack of movements of the animals. There's no. The Havmin is there's no such thing as Galil, Yehuda, and Yarden.
Right,
They're simply
GA, GB, GC, whatever.
not even GA. No, not even G. Exactly. There's 9 areas of land. Right. So what is Yehuda? So Ezra's doing something that's dangerous but necessary here. Okay, dangerous but necessary. What's Ezra doing? And I think you have no choice. Ezra's positing a fact. Now, and when it comes to Gemara, one of the most dangerous things to ever do is to posit a fact. Okay, we have no choice. Okay, so now, but what if Ezra says what he's saying? Okay, Ezra's introducing a whole new phenomenon. Ezra's saying that let's bring the people into it. Okay,
Gotta go back to living Techa.
What?
Gotta go back to living Techa.
So now, if you're saying that, okay, so what is Yehuda, Galil, and Yarden?
Those
are those areas of lack of movement, or
they're people-made areas.
people-made areas? Okay, meaning that
animals.
now I don't know. Now you posited the fact. You said maybe it is trading patterns. I have no clue.
It's color patterns.
I have no clue what feature. One second, what feature makes Yehuda different than Yarden? It could be what you're saying. It could be politics. It could be a million things. I don't know. But we do know one thing. It's not in the framework of the animals.
Only.
That's what. Only. Right. Only. It's not exclusively in the framework of the
animals. The
animals.
animals relate to eating man's produce.
What does Rav Shimon and Tanakama agree about? That's the starting point. What do they agree about?
Well, I think they do agree that
The first step you have to take is what they agree about. They both agree with one thing. That there's a Yehuda. That's what they agree on. So what's the machlokas then? The starting point for both Rav Shimon and Tanakama is Yehuda is distinct. Okay? It's distinct. Yehuda is a distinct area. Okay? So now Tanakama says, what do they now do?
Oh, okay, fine.
Raji's Tanakama.
So Rav Shimon says, okay, I have Yehuda. Okay, first. Okay, I think Tanakama they both start out. Tanakama and Rav Shimon they both start out with Yehuda.
In other words, Yehuda was the primary zone. Both of them agree with that. Now the question is, did they go ahead and take that feature, whatever that feature is, in Yehuda and duplicate it? And create 2 other zones from Yehuda? Or not? That's the machlokas. So let's say, let me just explain it first, and you can vent as much as you want. Tanakama saying that halakhically speaking, there's no difference between the zones. There isn't. But conceptually, Yehuda, in a sense, begat the Galil and the Yarden. They saw that Yehuda was distinct. And they said, oh, Yehuda is distinct. There's something unique about Yehuda. Now we're going to take that quality and see, are there other geographical areas that this feature applies to? Yes, Galil and Yarden. They also have a unique quality. I don't care what it is. X, trading patterns, political thing. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But there's something unique about those two areas that they can now be their own zones as well. But it emerged from Yehuda. Yehuda was the starting point. If you don't say that, then the machlokas becomes one of 3 versus 1, and you'll never be able to answer it. This, to me, is the way to get around that problem. They both agree that Yehuda is the starting point. Now the only question is, did the Torah go ahead and duplicate Yehuda? Right? Meaning that Yehuda is the primary conceptual zone. Right? Halakhically speaking, they're equal zones. But conceptually, Yehuda is the originator. Or according to Rosh Hashanah, no. Rosh Hashanah says that there's just one zone. There's Yehuda. There's no concept of extending or duplicating that idea of Yehuda to other areas. He's right. No, you're right. What you're saying is an incredible chiddush. What you're saying actually is profound. He's right. Maybe he's right. Maybe the question is that if Har Melech is that feature, so the question is, can you duplicate that feature or not? Meaning, is Har Melech a unique qualitative idea?
It can't be that because the Rishon says it just relies on the